Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. It's the first Friday of the month. We're here talking fusion each and every month, and thanks everybody for joining us here tonight. We've got the usual crew, and once again, a special guest. We're a recurring guest. I'm going to turn it over to George, Lamie, and Eric Porter, the two founders of the show. We've got a great show planned for you. And George, please introduce Mr. Chadwick, who is once again gracing us with his presence.
Yep. Second go around for Mr. Mike Chadwick. Long resume, manager of Snarky Puppy, runs the Absolute Fusion podcast, and just became doing work for Jazzwise magazine. So
yay, Mike, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, great to be back. I tell you, I missed it. I so loved the first one. So it's great to be back. I'm not going to waffle this time. I've been giving myself a good talking to. He's like, come on, you've been on the radio for 20 years. You don't know it needs to, and I'm waffling already. Anyway, let's go.
So, as always, before we get into the four albums that we're going to talk about in depth today, George is going to give us a little preview of some new stuff that's coming out. And I've got we have actually got visuals today, so let me get them up on the stage. George, take it away.
First one, Scott Kinsey, Lunavaz Live. This is the second release from Scott that explores and tributes the catalog of his idol, Joe Zawinul. In the elite rhythm section, and Hadrian Farrow and Gergo Borlai. Doesn't get much better than that. Mm-hmm. And you got a newcomer on sax in Patrick Bartley. He's killer too. It's extremely well produced, white hot in spots, chill in others. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. If you want to hear live versions of the old Zawinul stuff done by a A-list band, that's exactly what this is. You check it out on their Bandcamp. Next, Aurora Clara 4. This is also just like it sounds, the fourth album from a 4Fusion Friday favorite. Fairly quick turnaround from last year's Dreams. This is a bit of a bounce back, too, in my estimation. That one may have had a touch too much laid-back material. This one kind of mixes it up better. It's got more fire than the last one had. I'm hearing a little more flute presence here also, so put that in your consideration. But otherwise, it's business as usual for Aurora Clara. So if you like the first three, you'll be on board with this.
Really good album.
Yeah.
Next, you got Roman Bondarenko, Shades of Style. This is a Russian guitarist, previously unknown to me. I don't have personnel on this, but I do know that super keyboardist Valery Stepanov is on a couple of tracks. I would say this is a more fusion-leaning Greg Howe sounding album. He really sounds like Greg Howe.
Yeah.
Just go and watch the video for the tune Off-Road Racing. If that doesn't suck you in, just move on, because it's emblematic of this album in the biggest way. So,
I think that's my favorite song of the year so far, George. It's a killer. It's
I was just going to kick it to you and say you got this. You've heard this.
I love it. I absolutely. The only I think the back end is a little. The last two, there's a vocal track, and I think a slower one prior to that. But I mean, this is red hot. I think it's 7 or 8 tracks, and 6 of the 8 tracks are just fire. So I love it.
Yeah, the less said about the vocal tune, the better, I think.
Yeah, I like what I heard on this. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's really good.
Lastly, we got a friend of ours, Antoine Fafard. His collaboration with Gavin Harrison, Perpetual Mutations. This is the second one from these two gents. As all of Antoine's stuff is, this is very well composed. Probably just as much a prog record as a fusion record. Got varying instrumentation, different strings and horns adding in. Check it out on Antoine's Bandcamp. It's very much Antoine music. I mean, if you like his music and you're okay with the kind of instrumentation you got going here, it's very ornate, you're gonna like it. So check it out. Perpetual Mutations.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
So let's go to the square. For this one, I wanted something more arcane, like a different way to get different kinds of albums put through. So I wanted to pick a kind of an obscure way of thinking of it. So I just went with alphabetical. M is for Mike. These are M bands. In honor of our
I've been wondering for the last couple of weeks what the hell ties these four together, and I couldn't figure it out. There you go. How easy is that?
Me too. And I tell you what, there are a couple of Mike blind spots in your fourth square this month, George. I tell you, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, including a double M for the George's pick. We will get to that later.
And there's a story there coming up for you as well.
You got Mahavishnu Orchestra, the Lost Trident Sessions, Marbin, Dirty Horse.
No.
Mark Barney Project, MVP, Truth and Shredding, and Marutyri, Inner Movements. So, while we shake things up, why don't we go with Mr. Pete to start this one off?
Nice.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go with the at my number 4. I'm going to go with the Marutyri Inner Movement. So this was the only one of the 4 that I was not familiar with. So totally new band to me, Dutch band, I guess, right? 2016.
Yep.
And I found this to be the most different of the 4, and in a good way. I think the title track's a lot of fun. I love all the horns on this album, which I think are great. A lot of funky bass. The one thing I didn't like about this album, and it rears its head in a couple spots, is the guitar player playing, like on the title track, is playing slide guitar. Doesn't fit to my ears for whatever reason. To hear like all these horns and the funky bass, and then he comes in with this like long slide guitar thing, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But so far, I like what I'm hearing. Stellar Kid is really cool. What a lot of this album reminds me of is like 70s Chicago minus all the vocals. And as everybody who's watching knows, I'm a huge early Chicago fan, so that's okay with me. Kale is pretty tasty, and no, I'm not talking about the greenery. I'm talking about the song. Good stuff. I'm getting some Larry Carlton vibes on some of the lead guitar work on this album. I'm a big Carlton fan, so there's nothing wrong with that. Then he throws the slide in again. I don't really get that at all again, but whatever. Horns are terrific. I think Grump is really nice. Got a good groove to it. Big wah-wah guitar solo there. I love wah-wah guitar solos, so right off the bat, a lot of stuff here that I'm digging quite a bit. The Feeling Immunity, funky, last minute, more horns, love the horns. And I think City Streets is also a really nice, kind of more laid-back melodic closer. Again, reminded me of Larry Carlton on the lead guitar stuff. I enjoyed this. It's, like I said, it's quite different from the other 3. It's an easy number 4 for me, but I did like it a lot, and I just loved hearing all the horns. I think it was just really different. You know, I don't know if we've had a ton of releases that we've covered on 4Fusion Friday that have had as much horns on them as this one does. Really, really nicely done, though. So, yeah, but it's my number 4.
All right. What about you, Eric? What's your number 4?
I'm going with the same. I've been on vacation this week, and I've been scrambling with the order for these. But I kind of feel like Pete does. I like the horns, and I really like this album. But like you said, this one kind of fell off. I was thinking, I didn't obviously know the theme, so bringing Mike into that kind of, at least we get why the theme is. But I agree with Pete. This guitar player to me too, he's not present all the time. I mean, there's kind of pick your spots. I thought he's fantastic. I like that. I think it's the closer, Pete. You were saying City Streets.
Yeah.
Kind of a mellow tune, but I mean, at the end, he really fires off some great solos. I think Grump, like you said, had the wah solos, but I really found myself, maybe because of listening to the other 3, I enjoyed the horn arrangements. I liked the funkiness of this. Stellar Kid was another one that I thought was just terrific. Kale, same thing. And he's got kind of a clean tone that might just have a little bit of hair on it, but it cuts through when he plays. And I like, like I said, he's not there as much as I would like. I get that they're obviously a horn-focused band, But I was trying to catch some of his rhythm parts too, and he's kind of a nice, funky, background player, which I really enjoyed. But
he's just comping a lot for the most part
yes.
on a lot of these songs. They have a lot of videos too on YouTube, and you can watch it. They're playing in the studio, and he's just kind of sitting there chilling. I'm like, okay, that's kind of style player he is, right?
I've got to check that out then, because I didn't even look at YouTube to see if I could catch them. But I really liked them. I just think it was, you're listening to these, and the other three are pretty heavy in spots. And this one just kind of stood out. And like you said, in a good way. It's really good. If you like horns and dig the horns, this is definitely one to check out.
Mike, you're going to keep it going?
No, I'm not. I'm going to do. I'm having a George in the Court of the Crimson King moment, I think, here. And number 4 is MVP, Truth in Shredding. I have never liked this album from the minute that I heard it, apart from Rocks. There's something about this record, and I'm not quite sure what it is. Whether it's Freddie Ravel's appalling keyboard sounds, whether it's Frank Gambale's disgraceful production, the drum sound is awful. The guitar playing is amazing, and Rocks, just for me, sums it up. You've got the whole thing. The fact they recorded in 2 different studios. Alan, as usual, would always do these things on his own, so he's got control. He mixed his half of the song, and you can tell on every song. There's almost like this differential in the mixing, and most of it is like him taking the keyboards down. But Gambale blows, it just blows. He rips into Rocks, and then Holdsworth's entry in that song is just to die for. For me, it's like it's the moment of the record. But I just never liked this album. I don't know what it is about it, and there are 2 blind spots in this 4 square, as I said. So it was a toss-up which one do I put at number 4. But I thought I'd just be contentious and put this at number 4, because it's just one of those things you just need to do. I don't know. There's something about it. Great playing. Really didn't like the concept. You read about Mark's thinking behind the album, and I think the choice of tunes is appalling. I'd much rather have originals. I think Gambale's New Boots is a pretty okay tune. But the rest of it, why bother? Was it the idea of choosing 3 Brecker Brothers tunes to have that kind of like 2 guitar, 2 horns kind of retake? I don't know. Who knows? There's loads of questions, and that's another thing about this 4 square. There are loads of questions that I'd love to ask the people behind the records and why they made them and what the thinking is, because I'd probably understand them a lot more then. But anyway, enough waffle. That's definitely my number 4. It was by a long shot. And I remember, it's funny, I remember when we got sent the album in the store back in, 1990, because it was issued by a Dutch label first. And we got sent the album, and all the guitar players were there, and like, we put it on, and that opening number, the drum beat, you're kind of thinking, yeah, here we go. And then the keyboard comes in, and I was like, I don't like that keyboard sound at all. And then it just got messy, and all the guitarists were just loving it and lapping it up. And it was just one of those things that kind of like, you just get those moments, don't you, where you kind of like, you want to almost deliberately be on the other side of the fence. And it's stuck with me for 30 years, for God's sake. So thanks for that, George.
We got Mike Contrarian Chadwick on this.
But the rest of it, I thought it was fairly easy for me. I'm glad to say, but I'm glad I've got that off my chest. I kind of feel like I've been in the chair now, guys. So thanks for that.
There you go.
Well, I'm going to keep it going and back you up. I'm going to say Truth in Shredding. Not the same reasons as you. I actually enjoy this quite a lot. If it just went on songs and playing, it might be number 1. I mean, it's really good to me, but I kind of got that Pete feeling about this. Like, I felt bad like putting a covers album over original album. I didn't think of that when I put it in, but because
right.
I don't usually feel that, but I just feel like to put it over one of these other 3 would have been a little bit weird.
Do you know? Sorry to George, but I think one of the things I just forgot to mention was I didn't believe the record. I didn't believe that they were making the record for the right reasons. I don't know. I didn't feel, because I felt like not forced, but this is a question I'd like to ask. But sadly, we'll never know because Alan's no longer with us. But
one little bit of insight I do have as far as the Brecker Brothers tunes goes is that's, other than Chick Corea, that's Gambale's favorite composers.
Okay. There you go. That makes sense.
that tells me that Frank had a hand in picking these tunes. Maybe he picked them all.
He did, yeah.
Yeah, so you got 3 Brecker brothers and a Chick Corea. That's what I'm saying. You can't fault the actual compositions here because they're all songs I like on other albums.
Yes.
Except maybe Maria. That's never been a favorite shorter tune of mine. But the rest of this, like you said, New Boots is a good original. Not great, but it's good. I think Vital Information ended up redoing that. But yeah, it's just, I know, people are going to like seeing this in the square, and I know our guitar friends here, we're going to like to have this in there. But as I sat here, I made the ranking. I'm like, can I put this over the songwriting that went into these other ones? I just can't. So I put it at number 4.
I totally feel you, George, because I've been on the same. I've done it with other releases that we've had that were mostly covers. But like, how can I,
I know I had no problem with Faz Jazz, but this ain't no Faz Jazz.
Maybe, I mean, another question I'd love to ask is, would there be any plans to remix this album? Maybe replace the keyboards so they don't sound as dated? It could,
No.
Could be one of those.
Mike, did you feel that way when you first heard it too?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think back to when it, okay.
I did, yeah, I did. Yeah, I didn't like, I felt the same way about Frank's first 2 albums as well. And I never liked the production on those 2 albums.
I was gonna say they'd have to remix a lot of those late 80s, early 90s albums, right? Yeah.
I know.
And that would have to come out of Arnie's pocket. That's not going to happen.
Let's face it, these albums didn't make any money the first time around, right?
Exactly. And then you still, yeah, it doesn't.
Just to pay for a mastering engineer, forget about it.
I've never, I don't know, 30 years, George. It's, yeah.
All right, back to Pete. What do you got for 3?
All right, I got it number 3. My top 3 are just, this was kind of difficult because I really love all 3 of them. But I'm going to go with Marbin's Dirty Horse from 2022. I think it's a terrific album. It's a wacky, fun album. I mean, who doesn't love screaming guitar and sax like all over the place every step of the way, right? I mean, the Freeman Massacre is just killer. It's got some great drum work going on underneath it, quirky melodies, blazing guitar and sax. I mean, just really good. I think I like how it's weird how they do this on this album, but you have like all these like 2-part tracks. And like basically the first part of the track is going to be dominated by one of the Dannies, and then the next one is the other. So you'll have like part 1 will be screaming guitars, part 2 will be screaming sax, right? Which is just, they do that on Dirty Horse, the title track. They do that on Sid Yiddish, right? Just all sorts of crazy stuff going on. I love Headless Children. That's just absolutely wild. I mean, Midnight Squirrel is fun. Radio School is another one. It's got some cool kind of like ethnic influences going on. Lots of crazy soloing. I think for me, the one thing about this album, I think it's a little too long. There's just a lot of stuff here. Yeah. But if you just want crazy blowing with like quirky melodies and arrangements, Marbin is just such a cool, fun band. And they do lots of this wild stuff throughout their catalog, and this happens to be one of my favorites from them. So, but it's my number 3. It could be number 2 or number 1 any other day, but for now, I'll stick it at number 3.
Eric?
All right, I'm going with MVP as well at number 3, which I guess in my corner, I wasn't really familiar with most of these, even though they were covers. So for me, I guess, even though I could see in the credits, like you said, Brecker, and there's a Korea tune in there, I just didn't really know those songs. So I was listening to this, and like you guys said, these 3 for me, I love them all. Like said, everything there is to say about Rocks. It's just a killer opener, just on fire. I actually liked The Fall, where you got some acoustic work, a little more laid back. But I think that's kind of the thing, what was fun about this, I think, and maybe it was more of a, how do you say, a study album. Like, we kind of study these. I don't know so much about putting this on. I'm always wanting to listen close and say, is that there's Frank and there's Alan. And I think the other 2 that are coming are more where I can just sit back and enjoy them. This one, I always felt like I'm kind of studying. I want to know who's doing what's going on. But to have Alan Holdsworth and Frank Gambale on one thing together is just amazing. I mean, just sitting back and listening to that. And I agree, the keys are of their time, and that's kind of why I asked you that question, Mike, because I wondered, was there a difference between when you first heard this to now? But obviously you always dislike those keyboard sounds, which I think a lot of people do. But, you know, just hearing these two guys go back and forth. But I think that's like, I don't know if this is something I'm listening to so much to like get into it, as I'm always like listening and try to think here, who's doing what and what's coming next. So, and I probably need more time with this. George kind of hit the mother load about a month ago. And I actually just got this from George, probably 3 weeks ago, George, 4 weeks ago, right when the show was being set up. So I haven't had a ton of time with this one, but you know, you can't argue with listening to Frank and Alan. So that's my number 3.
And let's give credit where credit's due. You get Holdsworth to sign on. They put it in the contract that he had to solo for 2 minutes on every song.
I read that in the liner notes. That's fantastic, though, right?
I don't want to see him on there, and then it turns out he's on 1 or 2 songs and he hardly rips. You know, they put him to work.
They did.
At least that part is good. What do you got at 3, Mike?
So number 3 is my second blind spot, which is Marbin, Dirty Horse, and it's not then the band are my blind spot. I've never really understood them, and they've never resonated with me at all. I think it's too kind of bluesy, jammy, as Pete says, quirky, too much sense of humor. And the big question that I'd love to ask them both the Dannies, is about the influence of that kind of like the Middle Eastern, Eastern European folk music and traditional music, and how much that's influenced in what they do. I hear so much of gong in Danny Maskovich's playing. Didier Malherbe, the sax player from Gong, it's very gongified in a lot when they break it down and stuff. And I don't know, it's just one of those things. It's just a blind spot. I don't really dig what they do at all. It's I mean, I've tried again. I've listened to it 6 or 7 times, and I find it very difficult to listen all the way through. I don't know. I'm not meaning to be negative, and I was truly trying to not come across as not really liking it. But I think if you don't like something, you just have to say it's just not for me. And
honestly, Mike, in all the years I've been listening to Marbin, I often say to myself, I can see lots of people not liking this.
Sure.
I don't think you're off the mark. I mean, I happen to really like it, but I can totally understand that this is not everybody's.
Have you seen them live?
No.
Yeah, I'd love to see them live. I think it would probably change my opinion a lot. I think watching, because I mean, Danny Rabin is a phenomenal guitar player.
Oh yeah.
Phenomenal. But anyway, there you go. That's my number 3, Marbin.
I've seen them a few times, and they have rock band energy live. Like
I bet, yeah.
I've seen they opened for Alan like 15 years ago when I saw them, and they opened for HBC, and I thought they were better than both bands.
Really?
Yeah, I mean they bring it live.
I'm sure that makes a lot of sense. I think especially if they hone in all the the great bits of the compositions. I mean, but the which is the one, is it the World of Computers, where he kind of part 1 is the kind of country thing, and I'm thinking, I'd go, what's going
Hawaiian sounding, and this,
just right. And then you get something like Midnight Squirrel, which I thought that was brilliant. And I think if the album had been more like that, I'd have probably liked it a lot more. But maybe that, I don't know. It just doesn't resonate with me at all.
I think what George, I saw them once, and maybe 2 years back, 3 years, it might have been around Dirty Horse time. And I think what George said, they just, they rock. I mean, they were just so good live. Tiny little club, probably 35 people there.
I mean, yeah, I get it. Completely, I get it. I would probably really appreciate them a lot more if I saw them live. I think with some bands you need to see them live to appreciate the interplay between the two of them, because they've been together a long time. 15 years or so, probably even longer as friends. So yeah, I would probably understand them a lot more if I saw them live.
They're my number 3 as well.
What's going on
with Pete? It's too long. It's at 74 minutes. That's too long. I would excise a couple of these tracks to get it down to where I would like a good hour. But some of this stuff is really ripping, fun stuff. Sid Yiddish Part 2. I love that tune. And Headless Chicken. I mean, wow. Those songs, when this was new, I had that in my portable, and was just, that made the walks so much fun, just walking around to that stuff.
Which one has the throat singing? Is that the End of City Yiddish or something? The where he's doing the
the Tuvan stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, the soloing in this band, Danny Rabin, but Danny Markovich, man, that guy, he's really some kind of sax player. I'd like to see him doing more sessions. And this one, I had a complaint with them in the past, is they kind of ignore their rhythm section, but this one they kind of let them have some spotlight, and I think it's to the benefit. This is one of my more highly ranked Marbin albums, like Pete said, but I just happen to like these other two a little bit more, so I had to put it at 3.
Also, I wonder, because the first album they released themselves, but the first 3 albums that kind of came to people's attention were all released on Moon June, and the first album had like Matheny's rhythm section. That's kind of the first, and I thought they were a different band then. And I wonder whether, them taking this is another question, whether them taking control over their destiny, their music and their recordings and ownership, etc. I wonder if that's, given them the lease of life that it has.
Could be, or just evolution in time. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, sure. Yeah.
What's your 2, Pete?
All right, my 2, my 1 and 2 were pretty tough, but then I ultimately said, well, I can't really put my number 1 and have it be a covers album. So I went with MVP Truth and Shredding. And I hear everything that Mike is saying and George is saying about this. To me, this comes down to one thing. This is Frank Gambale at his most savage and molten ever. I think I've got a lot of great Frank Gambale stuff, and I think he's an amazing player. But, man, he just absolutely rips on this. And Holdsworth is great, too. But to me, I think Gambale steals the show on here. Him on Humpty Dumpty, he's just, like, doing this mind-boggling sweep pick and stuff. It's just like, what year was this again? 1990, 91? It's absolutely crazy. The Wayne Shorter tunes are cool on here, but I think for me, it's the Breckers stuff that's really what works here. And I like Frank's solo composition. New Boots is really good here. I agree the keyboard stuff is just not very good. You get some, Jimmy Earl does some good bass work on here from time to time, which is cool. But this is all about hearing these two guys soloing like crazy. And I agree the production is a little weird because you got Gambale comes in and he's got this ferocious tone, and then you got Holdsworth coming in. It sounds completely differently produced, and so it's kind of weird, but I love it. I put this on when I just want to hear just two amazing players just soloing like crazy, and it just, you never want it to end, right? But yeah, it is a covers album, and it is what it is. But I love it, but I couldn't see putting it at number 1, but I really dig it a lot, so that's my number 2.
Eric?
I'm going with Marbin at number 2. We've had Danny on. And I get what you're saying, Mike. Danny's a funny guy. I think that kind of comes out in his music. He's really seems to have a really good sense of humor.
Great. Yeah. Okay.
And if you've watched, he just came out with a YouTube video of Dirty Horse Part 1, showing the guitar parts and showing how to play that. And I know he does that a lot on their Patreon page, but I'm just in awe of him as a guitar player. I love his work. I know, Pete, you mentioned Freeman Massacre that opens up. And I love him and Danny playing together. I love the unison lines as much as hearing them kind of do their own thing. Dirty Horse, I think what I really liked about that Dirty Horse Part 1 is, and I got more of this watching the YouTube video, he really has a nice touch with the whammy bar on that song. And then when you watch him kind of demo how he does it, he's just got this really light touch. It's just, his pitch is fantastic. I know you guys mentioned, George mentioned Headless Chicken. That's just absolute fire. Even the closer has that, and I know I'm going to get the era wrong, but it almost has like a dance hall feel to it, that Radio School. And then it kind of mellows out, but it rocks too in that section. I don't know. I dig the contrast. That World of Computers Part 1 has that nice acoustic slide. Like I said, to me, it almost sounds like a Hawaiian piece of music. I don't know if that's correct either, but I just really like Danny. I like both of them actually. I like listening to the sax. Love having them play together. I just think they're a terrific band, and that's my number 2 is Dirty Horse.
Mike, where are you headed?
My number 2 is Marutyri or Marutyri. I don't know how you pronounce it. So I don't know whether you threw this in as a curveball, George, because this album, I think I know a lot about this album without actually knowing a lot about this album. So the guys all went to a school in Rotterdam called Codarts, which is a very famous Dutch performing arts and music school in Rotterdam. And this album was recorded just after Silver, and Snarky Puppy used to go to Codarts all the time to teach there and do masterclasses. And you can hear Snarky Puppy all over this album for me. You can hear Silver, you know, it's recorded just after Silver. There are so many references to Silver on this album, which is interesting because that was an orchestral album. But I just loved it. When it came out, I was just like, wow, finally, you know, there's a band that really understands Snarky, really, you know, is influenced by them. There's not been many that really kind of like have tried to get inside the psyche of Michael League and his musical mind. And I think that the bass player who leads the band, what's he called? Rick van der Au, has really done a great job. I think the compositions are fantastic. The arrangements are fantastic. And the genius thing about this album is getting Nick Hard to mix it. Nick Hard has been Snarky's recording engineer for over 10 years, and he mixed the album. He mixed both their albums, and I love the sound of the record. I think it's fresh and exciting, and I think the name they've even gone for, like, let's try and think of the most craziest name that we could think of in honor of our buddies at Snarky Puppy, and so they've done that. It's like, but that's never going to catch on, is it? You know, it's not going to work. But everybody I know who I've played this album to absolutely loves it. And I think all the tracks that you mentioned, Pete and Eric, I get it completely. They're all great. I mean, yeah, the guitarists, you're both guitar players, and obviously you listen out for a lot of that. And I get what you're saying about the slide thing, but there's a lot of slide in, you know, in early Snarky Puppy stuff. You know, in those kind of, especially mirroring the melody lines and stuff. And I get it. And the whole Codarts thing, just really, these kids were just like so lapping up everything. And because Snarky spent so much time in Holland in the early days, you know, they recorded We Like It Here there, they recorded Silver there. They really broke into the European scene and really became, you know, it kind of became the band that they are because of the first gigs in Holland and the effect that they had on the music students. And two people who used to be at, well, one person who used to be at Codarts is now at the Metropole. And she was very integral in getting Snarky Puppy connected with the Metropole. So that whole Codarts thing was full of students. It's my number 2.
My number 2 as well. And kind of validates what I was thinking when I was thinking to try an Alphabet Square, because I probably never picked these guys otherwise.
No.
I'm going through my M's and I'm like, man, here's a band that nobody talks about that's really good, like, and, you know, kind of different from everything else that's out there. And then there was the angle where I knew that they feel totally Snarky Puppy to me, and you were going to be on, so I wanted to see what that angered you or you appreciated it. So
I love it, and just the fact that, you know, the guys went to the school and, you know, inspired them, I just think is lovely.
Yeah, they're not.
Love Dutch people. Dutch people are the best. They're just the best. Honestly.
They're definitely not trying to hide it. I mean, it's right out there. From the moment I heard it, I heard someone posted the video to Inner Movements when it first came out, and I was blown away. So professional, so lush, infectious. I mean, that's still one of the best songs, I think. And Grump, like Pete and Eric said, Grump is just great. That's a great tune. I like every song on here, even the 1 minute and change intro, the bane of my existence on here. It's really good. I mean, it's not a throwaway. It's not some some lead into something. It's a song on its own, even though it's only 145. I mean, it's a legit song.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just if you're a horn fan at all, you have to get this. And like just a well-produced jazz fusion sounding record. Yeah, the guitar's a little backseat, but that's going to happen when you have what is this, an octet? I mean, that's bound to happen. Nothing's going to take control. So,
and they must have all been in their early 20s when they recorded.
Yeah, they definitely look very young. So that's
they have another one too, right, George? Was there two that they have out?
One studio and one live.
One live. Okay.
Yeah, and that's got to be 5 years ago now. So I don't know what they're up to. I haven't heard anything. Mike, you hear anything?
No, they're just the two. I think 2 albums, 2015, 2017. That's all I know.
All right, tell us about your number one, Pete.
All right. I mean, can it be anything but this, right? I mean, it's Mahavishnu Orchestra, for crying out loud, right? Probably like all of you, I remember when this was first released, that it was just such a big deal because I had been in love with the Between Nothingness and Forever live album for ages, and always like, how weird that they put out a live album with all these tunes that aren't on any album. Well, because they basically recorded an album and then broke up. So this just sat in the vaults from like 73 till 1999. So to me, it's just cool hearing these and those songs and a couple of others, produced by the band in the studio. And the crazy thing is, you read up about this and how McLaughlin talks about how, they weren't speaking to each other barely. And, you knew the end was near and everybody wanted to go off and do other stuff. And you listen to this and you're like, does this sound like a band like breaking apart at the seams? It doesn't at all to me. I mean, Dream is just terrific. I love the slow tension at the beginning. And then John comes in with this violent, like, flurry of notes. And then Jan's electric piano. And then Cobham's bashing away. And then Jerry comes in with these wispy violins. Just amazing stuff. And, like Trilogy, it's amazing. Because I've been listening to this a lot lately with all these other albums. And I listen to Trilogy and I'm thinking, and again, I know that they were, but you hear stories about the Dixie Dregs and how influenced they were by Mahavishnu. You listen to Trilogy and I hear like Odyssey, like immediately. And I'm thinking, and granted, but how much they were, probably from the live album, of course, but I'm thinking, man, it's amazing how much a band like the Dixie Dregs got from this band. And there's so much stuff on here. I mean, ferocious soloing. There's beautiful stuff on here. Sister Andrea's, atmospheric and funky. I Wonder is great because it's got this like cool kind of interplay between the guitar, the keyboards, and the violin. Just amazing stuff. And just Billy's just going berserk underneath. I don't know. John's song is just amazing. It's just a jam, right? But still, in the hands of these people, a jam becomes like this really cool song. I just love this. I mean, maybe you could say it's a little bit lacking on the songwriting side of things because it is a little jammy in spots, but I don't care. I think this is amazing. And I think it makes a worthwhile final piece to that now what is original Trilogy from this lineup of the band. And I always, when they first released this, I was always so thankful because I always thought that the first incarnation of this band was kind of like unfinished. And now this kind of puts the final stamp on it. And now we have those true first 3 studio albums from them. So yeah, Lost Trident Sessions. I love it.
Eric, you say something?
We have no surprises, right, on this round. For me, it's just that they're like the blueprint. I mean, there's so much raw energy and power in this band. I mean, and you've got, I love the violin, so that's no secret. We talk about that all the time. And just Goodman and McLaughlin in combination with each other is just, it blows me away. And, John's song too, great violin. I love the keyboard work. You hear a lot of electric keys throughout this. And even like Trilogy, I think you get all 3. You get Hammer and McLaughlin killing it, and then you got Goodman up front at one point, I think around like the 5-minute mark. He's just ridiculous. And I always try to think about that, like when Goodman kind of popped in with the dregs for his little, he had his little run in with there. Like, can you imagine just like how exciting that would have been for them? Like, we're playing with Jerry. I know it's Steve Morris, and I know, you know, but still, I'm like, you know, come on, that had to be amazing. So
I mean, I asked Steve that question specifically when I interviewed him not long ago, and he's like, it was an absolute thrill for us.
Yeah.
This guy, he just became one of the band, right? He just became part of the boys, and he goes, he goes, Jerry still has an open invitation to join us on the road whenever, and you know, he does from time to time. And how cool is that, you know?
But I just think the firepower that they have, it's just that rock energy with the chops that those guys have. It's just, and to think, what did it sit? How long did those tunes sit for?
Long time.
20 years?
73 to 99, they held on to this stuff.
So crazy.
That's one of the biggest injustices, right? That they let this sit for so many years like this.
Right.
Mike, you like it too? Or are you gonna rip it?
No, I'm absolutely gonna eulogize for the max. So yeah, so Bob Belden, thank God for Bob Belden, because if he'd not found the master tapes, you know, just on a shelf, this might still be hidden away, because nobody at Sony gave a monkey's uncle about this. Not at all. And it's like you read the sleeve notes, and I love the fact that, you know, the reason this album didn't come out at the time was, yeah, there were tensions in the band, but it was because it was a fight over publishing rights. It was a fight over songwriting, credits and that kind of stuff. And so they gave the 3 live tracks to, you know, for the, yeah, there you go.
The whole story.
I mean, really an incredible reads. And then they released this not long afterwards with the whole unreleased disc from Between Nothingness and Eternity, with all the other Mahavishnu stuff from the trilogy out, from the first 2 albums. I mean, what is it with record companies and bands and things and getting things wrong? And, you know, it's kind of like, it will forever be like that, won't it? But the thing that I love the most about this record is it's one of those records that you put it on and instantly you're just like, wow, you're in the zone, and you get to the end of it. And I can only remember bits of it. I have to go and listen to it again just to check what's been going on for the past 45 minutes. I just find it a fascinating record. It's like just the fact that it lay in the vaults, and it is like the concluding part of those first 2 albums. And it is, you're right, Pete, it's such a different to those first 2 albums, such a different record, but a logical record, because, you know, the band had toured incessantly for, you know, for those 3 years, and honed this material. So it was naturally going to be, I think, a different record. But it makes complete sense as the third. And I've often listened to all 3 one after the other since the release of this, and just been in heaven. They are, you know, the greatest thing ever, in my opinion. And it was an easy number 1.
I think we knew it was going to be a different record, because obviously we had the live album, and we, you know, most of the stuff out there. And you know, we've talked about it before. We've covered the live album on here before, and like, you know, that's, you look at like the first album, and that's very well composed, but there's lots of jams on it and these longer pieces. And then you have the second album, which is a lot of these really short, tight, you know, compositions. And then you have this, which is not that at all. So it's very different from the second album quite a bit. But I just think it perfectly wraps up this lineup. It's like you had to have this.
Yeah,
we got screwed out of it for so many years, and now it's like that final piece to the puzzle of Mark I of Mahavishnu Orchestra. It's like, it's perfect.
And they didn't feel it was going well in the studio, which just boggles my mind, because
absolutely,
it sounds like it was going pretty well to me. Yeah. The 2 longer pieces, I like them in the sweet kind of mode, doing the long pieces. Yeah, some of the parts aren't they're more just blasting sessions than composed, but it still comes out really good. I'll say something weird here. I think my favorite song is Sister Andrea. That groove, yeah, it's just infectious. I mean, I loved it from the live album, and then when this came out, I was like, man, yeah, this really holds up. And then the 3 songs that got added, they're all really good. Stepping's tones sounds like it could have been on the first 2 albums. I mean, it's got one of those building, kind of a climbing progression.
Yeah.
John's song really rips. I mean, it's just a great. I'd hate to think that this would have never come out if not for Bob Belcher.
Right.
Definitely deserved to see the light of day. That, you know, I figured it would dominate the square, but I figured it was a good idea to put it in because, you know, a lot of people instantly give it the cold shoulder because it's the, you know, 26 years later. Oh, that one, the one that sat in the vaults, kind of give it that short shrift a little bit. And I figured we'd all want to throw in on that and see where we're coming from on that end of it.
I remember the day it came out, just like it was yesterday.
And wasn't it right around when what's the live thing with John and Jocko? Oh, Trio Doom. Wasn't it right around Trio Doom? And that was disappointing.
That was disappointing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, again, they should have left that as just being those you know, hard to find tracks on the Havana Jam albums. They should just have left that there, and that would have been it. But yeah, no, and I love the story as well in the sleeve notes about, you know, and it turns out Billy Cobham was like, you know, typical drummer, was just going with the flow a lot of the times. He was the one that wasn't causing any of the problems. He was just wanting to get out there and play. Love it. Fantastic. Yeah.
They're arguing about credits and songwriting ability, and he's like, I'll do it on my album.
Exactly. And look what happened. He released Spectrum, you know.
Yep.
Fantastic. I mean, and the question, so who was creating the problems? It was probably McLaughlin. What do you think?
Well, I think he should have let them contribute. I mean, obviously they wrote good tunes, so it's kind of hard to say that you should exclude them.
It's funny. I'm privy to a lot of discussions about these kind of things, and there's a lot more fairness these days. I think a lot more, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Not community vibe, but
like a teamwork vibe.
Yeah, like a teamwork vibe. I think these days. Yeah.
All right. Well, the George's pick for the M is for Mike Square is a double M. Mr.
It's a real one.
Oh, this is a burn.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. If I could find it, I'd have it, but I can't find it.
And just out of interest, that's the cover that Sandro doesn't like.
Yeah, I like this one better.
I do too, but he likes the original cover. He prefers the original cover.
This is a Brazilian quartet. One and done. Although technically, about 5 years ago, they put out an album under this name, but it's totally different. It's like a straight ahead thing. Totally not like this. This is 1998. I don't want to say. I'll leave it up to you. What do you think, Pete?
I enjoyed this. I had never heard this band before. I love the Brazilian rhythms and percussion and things going on. What's this guy's name? Cuca Teixeira?
Teixeira, yeah.
He's great. I mean, just right off the bat, that's like the first thing I picked up on. I love this song, Planet Jazz. Again, you got ripping guitar, percussion all over the place. Keyboards are really nice. Bonze is another really nice tune. I think that Sandro Hake, the guitar player, he's got some Gambale in him a little bit. I hear some stuff every now and then that reminds me of Frank, which I think is pretty good. And he's also playing bass on most of this album, I think. Really good bass player as well. I mean, the title track has got some great lines on there. Speed Racer might be my favorite song on here. Total burning track. Heartbeat is really good. That's got this kind of quirky arrangement, which I think is good. La Partida has got some nice grooves. I think it's a really fun album. There's a lot of stuff on here. Couple sleepy tunes, but I think for the most part, this is very, very enjoyable. I love the ethnic feel of the whole thing, and it's just got grooves to die for, and man, some absolutely smoking drum and percussion, which I think to me is really the driving force of the record, and that's not surprising being a Brazilian band. So yeah, I dug it. Thought it was really good.
What'd you think, Eric?
Same. I mean, I really like this. And like you said, the guitar player, Sandro, I like his phrasing. I just thought he had really nice phrasing in this. George, I wasn't sure if this annoyed you because I know some of this was improv-y to me at times. And then they have a couple of those short, really quick tracks to, I don't know if it's just to break things up a little bit. I know sometimes that stuff gets under your skin, but same thing. I thought Planet Jazz was terrific, and that had some really killer bass in it too towards the end. I don't know if I'm saying this one right. Bonzi. I think that's like the 3rd track or something. I want to buy a Rhodes keyboard, just have it in my house, just so I can get. I just love that electric key sound.
Yeah,
really awesome guitar. That one I got kind of a Tribal Tech vibe from I think, and there's a little bit of that one too. And then Pete Speed Racer, like you said, that is like the guitar showcase on this. I think it's just terrific. And then, like you said, there's a couple things that get more laid back. I found them to be a bit improv at times, where I don't, I like that bands do that, get adventurous maybe, and it's not just all tight and everything. But there were a couple here that I thought maybe were, a little snoozy, like Pete said, I think. But overall, I, again, love the guitar playing. I love the keyboards in this. So this was terrific. And like I said, I had a burn of this for years. But again, it's hard to find stuff on these bands. So I didn't even know that they had a second one, George, even though it's, like you said, it's not really along the same lines. But, just it's hard to find out about these things in these bands. So, but really terrific stuff.
Yeah. There's no finding this. I've had it in want list on Discogs forever. It just doesn't come up.
No.
And I know a guy in Brazil, and he found Sandro Hayek, and Sandro Hayek doesn't even have any. So you're not likely. You're gonna have to get very lucky.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, I liked it so much, I want to buy the company. So, no, seriously. So I'm already in touch with Sandro Hayek. He has got CDs, and he is going to be looking out for some extra material, and I'm going to somehow I'm going to get it reissued. It is the most amazing thing I've heard in years, George. Thank you so much for this pick. I just think it's an amazing record. I love the improv side of it. For me, it's kind of like it's a Brazilian tribal tech album, and they always have an element of improv that I loved so much. And Cuco Teixeira, I only really knew of him through Neural Code. I've not really checked out anything else that he's done. I love Sandro's bass playing is just off the charts. What a sound he's got is just gorgeous. So he's really excited. I have to say, there's definitely something going on. I've poked the bear in Brazil, and because my wife's from Brazil, so we're going to set up a meeting, and I'm going to tell her what to say to and stuff. But he's going to see if they've got any unrecorded, unreleased material, some live stuff from that time. And I said to him, it's got to be about that album, because I think that album, showcasing that album, maybe reissuing it as a double with some extra material would do really well. So, yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. I mean, you've both Pete and Eric have mentioned all the tracks. They're all just killer. Planet Jazz is just, after that intro, which you just think, oh, okay, what's going on here? And then suddenly it's like, oh, bam. And I'm away, and honestly, George, it hooked me from minute one. So I am forever indebted for turning me onto this one. And now on the show, it's really frustrating for the past 6 weeks because I've not been able to play any of these tracks on the show, all this music, because I wanted to play that track off the Marbin album and wanted to play Marutyri again. And yeah, so I'm next show. Guess what's going to be in the next show?
Nice.
But yeah, great, really, really great record, really fantastic. And yeah, they want to tour. They're putting a band together with a new Cuban keyboard player, and they're going to get out on the road now. Obviously, 25 years on, will it be the same? Will it be, is it good? I don't know. I don't know whether that's a good idea for them, but I'm glad that I've given him, a little bit of a buzz, that people, he knows that people love the album. But I said to myself, well, why have you never reissued it again? It's not hard to repress a CD and make it available. It's not rocket science. But anyway, there you go. Thank you.
Time tends to douse the flame of a lot of guys.
It does. Yeah, it does. He's been working a lot with Hermeto Pascual's band. Are you aware of him? Do you know the albino multi-instrumentalist? Played percussion on Bitches Brew and those early 70s Miles albums. He's the Brazilian guy who did those albums with Airto and stuff.
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, he's been working with his band. It's kind of, and you can tell yeah. But yeah, him and Cuco are excited. So you never know.
So I was early 2000s. I'm on a old Yahoo mailing list called FuseNet, and this was a hot album that everybody talked about, and they couldn't find. You know, one guy had multiple copies, and he was selling them for like $100 a crack. You know,
Wow.
people were just like, "Yeah, save it with $100." You know, that's also the time when downloading was huge, so everybody had it as files, but you know, no one was finding the hard copies. And as soon as I heard it, I'm like, this is the closest thing to tribal tech you're ever going to hear.
Exactly.
Plus, these Brazilian influences with the percussion in the background all the time.
Yeah.
That mix was like totally mesmerizing to me. I was like blown away. But yeah, you guys hit the tracks. Planet Jazz, incredible. Speed Racer is the other one. Wow.
Yeah.
Even the tones. I mean, if he told you that they weren't like totally inspired by tribal tech, I wouldn't believe it, because the bass tone is totally Gary Willis's tone.
Yeah. Completely.
Henderson's tone, you know, very close to that too.
But in Brazil, it's a very insular market. It is its own market, and they have, you know, like you go to like São Paulo, and like all the record shops, all the musical instrument shops, they all have their own street. So they're all on the one street, and they all specialize in different things. It's fascinating the way that their culture works. But yeah, you're right. I mean, fusion was huge in Brazil at that time. Massive.
Yeah, I just think it's a real lost gem to the genre.
And George, there's another guitar player listed, I think, on a couple tracks. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, who's that? Is that Michael Lean?
I'm not.
Or Wilson Teixeira?
Called Tomati. He's plays in that band called I've forgotten.
Yeah, he's on 3 tracks. Carlos Tomati. And Michael Lean is on 1 track.
Okay.
This band called the Homeless Trio, a Brazilian trio. Just got one album by them in São
Paulo. That was one of the exciting things when I came across Neural Code, is to see Cuca Teixeira pop back up, because you know he had only been on like one other thing in between, so that was exciting. He has a couple solo albums if you want to track him down. They're good.
They're good. Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I felt like it was important to get this one in there because people need to hear this. I mean,
they really do.
A late '90s gem if there ever was one.
It's a good choice. Good choice.
Oh, I feel sick after all that, gents. I have to say, I've kind of got a lot off my chest, and then we came around to the fact that I might be reissuing a bloody record. So it's marvelous.
That's awesome, Mike.
There you go.
Keep us posted.
Square.
So, George, I always ask you this question at the end of every episode, and I know, and we always make a point of not giving too much away, but you have any little hint that you want to give folks for next month?
I actually don't, because I'm not sure. I got a lot of stuff in the hopper, and nothing's like pushed its way to the front of the line as the one I really want to go with. So I'm incapable this time.
Okay. All right. We'll make us wait. That's okay. We want to thank Mike Chadwick for coming on once again. It's always a pleasure having him on here, and I'm sure we'll see him at a future episode as well. As long as he's interested in coming back.
Yeah, of course. 100%.
While we got you here, I know Eric and I both wanted to know about the Bill Lawrence record.
Yes.
The Rhodes record.
Okay, so the Rhodes company, they're not called Fender Rhodes anymore. They're just called Rhodes now. They've just released the new version of the keyboard called the Mark 8. And the guy that does the product design and the technology design behind the keyboard went to college with Bill, and they've always been great friends. And the guy who runs the company now is a big fan of Bill's, and they asked him if he would be one of the people to help showcase the Rhodes. So Bill wrote these 4 new tracks, and they went up to the company's offices in Leeds and filmed them. They're all on YouTube. If you go on the Rhodes' YouTube channel and Bill's YouTube channel, there's 4 tracks on there. It's just a trio, but it's like Bill wrote this music specifically to showcase what the Mark 8 can do. So, and when we were thinking about, you know, what to do with the music after you record, we just thought, let's put a record out. So that's what we're going to release. It's coming out digitally on the 23rd of August. And at the same time, there's a CD version which has the old Zeal EP, which was only ever issued digitally as well. So there's a vinyl and CD of that coming out. It's called Do What You Want, which is on Bill's Bandcamp site. And of course, I will wing a couple of copies in the post to you guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
And I was going to say we all have the
listen to that. And Mike, I'm seeing Ghost Note on Friday.
Oh, cool.
They're playing a show down here. Like, it's kind of I don't want to say a mid-afternoon. It's probably like a 6 at night, but it's like a open house for one of the venues here, which I thought was pretty cool. So looking forward to that. Yeah,
you get your funk on.
Yes, indeed. Good stuff.
Birthday celebrations.
Indeed.
So that wraps up another episode of 4Fusion Friday, folks. But for all of you Fusion fans, stay tuned, because coming up on Sunday on Ranking the Albums, we will be returning to Fusion once again. George and Eric and I will be ranking the albums of Simon Phillips' great band Protocol. 5 albums. That's coming up on Sunday, so stay tuned for that. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Make sure you go check out these 4 albums we talked about today, or 5 actually, and go down below and let us know what you think of them. Rank them if you like them. Check out George's new album picks. We'll have those posted down below as well. And we'll see you next time here on 4Fusion Friday. For Mike Chadwick, Eric Porter, and George Lamie, I am Pete Pardo. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next month here on 4Fusion Friday. Simon Phillips Protocol coming up on Sunday. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.